Michael Torres pulled into the parking lot of Sterling Industries at 11:47 p.m., 13 minutes early for his midnight shift. The massive corporate campus was eerily quiet at this hour, most of the buildings dark, except for security lights and the occasional window where some overachieving executive was still working. At 34, Michael was exhausted in a way that went beyond the physical. Single father to 8-year-old Emma, working 3 jobs just to keep them afloat since his wife had died 2 years ago from complications during what should have been a routine surgery. The day job at the warehouse paid the rent, the weekend gig at the hardware store covered groceries, and this new night job, the one literally nobody else wanted, would maybe finally let him start saving for Emma's future instead of just surviving month to month. The position was simple: overnight custodial and security for Sterling Industries data center. 12-hour shifts, 4 nights a week, 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. The pay was decent, better than decent actually, which is why Michael had jumped at it despite the impossible hours. The catch was that the data center was kept at a constant 62 degrees Fahrenheit for the servers, which meant spending 12 hours in what was basically a high-tech freezer, alone, doing maintenance and security checks that nobody else wanted to endure. Michael had a plan: sleep from noon to 6 p.m., spend 6 to 11 p.m. with Emma, dinner, homework, bedtime routine, work midnight to noon, repeat. It was going to be brutal, but it was temporary. Just until he could save enough for a down payment on a small house, give Emma the stability she deserved. He clocked in and met the evening supervisor, who gave him a quick tour of the facility. Rows and rows of server racks, humming with the computational power that ran Sterling Industries' global operations. The company made software for financial institutions, handling trillions of dollars in transactions. Security was paramount, which is why someone had to be physically present 24/7, even though everything was automated. Most people can't handle it, the supervisor said, handing Michael a heavy jacket. The cold, the isolation, the hours. We've had 6 people quit in the past 2 months, but the pay reflects that. I'll be fine, Michael said, thinking of Emma's college fund. I've handled worse. The first week was exactly as miserable as advertised. The cold seeped into Michael's bones despite the jacket and thermal layers. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the endless hum of servers, and the exhaustion was crushing, trying to sleep during the day while his body screamed that he should be awake. But he pushed through. He did his rounds, checked the security monitors, logged the temperature readings, cleaned the already spotless facility. And he thought about Emma, about her smile when he told her they might be able to move to a house with a yard someday. On Friday of the second week, during his 3 a.m. security check, Michael noticed something odd on one of the monitoring stations: a series of access attempts from an external IP address, probing the network perimeter. He wasn't a tech expert, but he'd been trained to watch for unusual patterns, and this looked unusual. He called the emergency security line, reported what he'd seen. The overnight security analyst sounded half asleep but took his report. Probably nothing. Our systems get probed constantly, but thanks for logging it. Michael went back to his rounds, uneasy but reassured that he'd followed protocol. 3 hours later, at 6 a.m., alarms started going off throughout the facility. Michael's radio crackled to life. Security breach in progress. Active intrusion attempt. All personnel to stations. Michael ran to the main monitoring room as instructed. The overnight security analyst was now very much awake, typing frantically. It's a coordinated attack. They're using the probe patterns from earlier to mask a more sophisticated intrusion. They're trying to access our client transaction databases. If they get in, we're talking about potential access to billions of dollars in financial accounts. What do I do? Michael asked. Nothing. Stay out of the way. I've called the executive team. This is above our pay grade. But Michael couldn't just stand there. He looked at the screens, at the intrusion patterns. He'd seen something like this before. Not in IT work, but in the security training for his warehouse job, where they'd learned about social engineering and layered security attacks. They're creating a diversion, Michael said suddenly. What? Look, these intrusion attempts here and here. Michael pointed at the screens. They're aggressive, obvious, But these smaller access attempts on this other system, they're quieter. I think the big attack is meant to draw your attention while the real intrusion happens over here. The analyst stared at the screens, then his face went white. Oh my God, you're right. That's our backup authentication system. If they compromise that... He started typing frantically, redirecting defensive resources. Over the next 2 hours, as the sun rose outside, Michael found himself in the middle of a desperate battle to protect the company's systems. He wasn't a tech expert, but his security training and his ability to see patterns, honed from years of warehouse inventory management, proved useful. He spotted several other diversionary tactics, helping the security team focus their defenses effectively. By 8 a.m., the attack had been repelled. No data had been breached, no client accounts compromised. Michael clocked out, exhausted beyond measure, and drove home to get Emma ready for school. He was sleeping hard at 2 p.m. when his phone rang. An unknown number. He almost ignored it, then remembered he'd applied for a better-paying job at a different warehouse. Might be important. Hello? Mr. Torres? This is Caroline Mitchell, executive assistant to Alexander Sterling. Mr. Sterling would like to meet with you this afternoon. Would 4 p.m. at your residence be acceptable? Michael's brain struggled to process this. Alexander Sterling, the CEO and founder of Sterling Industries, Billionaire. The man whose company Michael cleaned for. Why? Mr. Sterling will explain when he arrives. Is 4 p.m. acceptable, I guess? Yes. Okay. At 3:45 p.m., Michael was frantically cleaning his small apartment, desperately hoping Emma's toys weren't too obviously scattered everywhere. At 3:58 p.m., there was a knock on the door. Alexander Sterling stood in the hallway wearing jeans and a simple button-down shirt, not the suit Michael had expected. He was in his mid-50s with gray at his temples and the kind of relaxed confidence that came from genuine accomplishment rather than ego. Mr. Torres, thank you for seeing me on short notice. May I come in? Michael stepped aside, feeling surreal. A billionaire was standing in his tiny apartment, looking at the worn furniture and Emma's drawings on the refrigerator. I understand you have a daughter, Sterling said. Is she home? No, she's at after-school care. I pick her up at 5:30. Good. I'd like to talk to you privately. Sterling sat on the couch without invitation, making himself comfortable despite the spring poking through the cushion. You helped stop a cyber attack this morning, one that could have cost my company billions and destroyed our reputation. The security team tells me you spotted the real intrusion vector when our own analysts were missing it. I just noticed a pattern. Don't minimize what you did. You saved us. Sterling leaned forward. I've been reviewing your file. Former military, security training, 3 years of warehouse management. College education incomplete due to financial constraints. Widower, single father. Currently working 3 jobs, including the night shift in our data center that nobody else will take. Michael felt defensive. I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm not offering sympathy. I'm offering opportunity. Sterling pulled out a folder. I want to hire you as Director of Physical Security Operations for Sterling Industries. Base salary $180,000, full benefits, stock options, and a signing bonus of $50,000. Normal business hours, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., Monday through Friday. You'll oversee security at all our facilities, train personnel, develop protocols. The work you did this morning showed me you have the instincts we need. Michael stared at him. You're serious? Completely. You demonstrated situation awareness, pattern recognition, and the ability to act under pressure. Those skills are valuable. More valuable than most credentials on paper. But I don't have a security degree. I haven't finished my bachelor's. You have practical experience and proven instincts. That matters more. We'll pay for you to complete any certifications or education you want to pursue. Sterling stood. I didn't build this company by ignoring talent when I saw it, regardless of where I found it. You were working a job nobody wanted, in the middle of the night, alone in the cold. And you were paying attention when it mattered. That tells me everything I need to know about your character and work ethic. Why didn't anyone tell me it was you? Michael asked suddenly. Why did you come here yourself? Because I wanted to see how you lived, wanted to understand who you were beyond the employee file. Sterling gestured at the apartment. You're working yourself into an early grave to provide for your daughter. I respect that. But you shouldn't have to. This job, it'll let you be a father, not just a provider. You'll have time with Emma, time to breathe, time to build a life, not just survive one. Michael felt his eyes burning. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Start Monday. Move into a better place. The signing bonus should cover that. Be present for your daughter, and help me keep my company secure. Sterling extended his hand. Deal? Michael shook it, his hand trembling. Deal. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being in the right place at the right time and paying attention when everyone else would have just clocked in and out. Sterling headed for the door, then paused. Oh, and Mr. Torres? That night job you took that nobody wanted? You can quit that effective immediately. I'll make sure you're paid, through the end of the month anyway. After Sterling left, Michael sat on the couch and cried, really cried for the first time since his wife's funeral. Not from grief this time, but from relief so profound it felt physical. He could breathe. He could be present for Emma. He could build something instead of just surviving. 3 years later, Michael stood in his new house, bought with money saved from his salary, not debt, watching Emma and her friends play in the backyard. Alexander Sterling stood beside him, invited to Emma's 11th birthday party because he'd become not just Michael's boss, but a mentor and friend. She's thriving, Sterling observed, watching Emma laugh. She is. We both are. Because you took a chance on someone you found doing a job nobody wanted. I took a chance on someone who was working 3 jobs and still showed up alert enough to spot a cyber attack at 3 a.m. That's not luck. That's character. Sterling smiled. Though I'll admit, I've restructured that night security position. Better pay, better conditions, reasonable shifts. Nobody should have to work in a freezer alone for 12 hours just to feed their family. You didn't have to do that. I did. You taught me something, Michael. I'd gotten comfortable, disconnected from the reality of what my employees were enduring to work for me. That night shift was brutal, but I'd never experienced it myself, so I didn't realize how brutal. You reminded me to look closer, to understand what people sacrifice to work for me. Sterling paused. You've done more than just provide security. You've made this a better company because you've never forgotten where you came from. Michael thought about that midnight shift, about the cold and isolation and desperation, about spotting an attack pattern because he was too stubborn to quit paying attention even when exhausted, about the knock on his door that had changed everything. I almost didn't take that job, Michael admitted. Thought it would kill me working those hours. But I was desperate. Desperation paired with dedication is powerful. You could have clocked in and out, done the minimum. But you paid attention. You cared about doing the job right, even when nobody was watching. Sterling raised his glass to paying attention, to doing the work nobody wants, and to the opportunities that come from showing up when it matters. Michael clinked his glass against Sterling's, watching Emma blow out her birthday candles, surrounded by friends and joy and the security that came from having a father who was present, not just surviving. The single dad had taken a night job nobody wanted, working in isolation and cold, pushing through exhaustion because he had no other choice. By morning, the billionaire was at his door, not to exploit that desperation, but to recognize the character it revealed. That's the difference between people who have power and people who use it well. The ones who use it well, remember that talent and dedication often hide in the most overlooked places, doing the jobs nobody wants, showing up when it would be easier to quit. And when they find it, they don't exploit it. They invest in it. That's what Alexander Sterling did, and that's what transformed one single father's desperate gamble into a career, a home, and a future for the daughter who'd motivated every frozen, exhausted hour of that night job nobody wanted. Sometimes the worst jobs lead to the best opportunities, but only if someone's paying attention. Fortunately for Michael Torres, that morning, someone was